My name is Randy. I want to thank you all for coming to help celebrate Mark's life. I really appreciate that. Mark was a great brother and friend. He knew one thing real well, and that was how to party. I asked him, what does he like about structural engineering? Because it sounds pretty boring to me. He said he loved math. He loved calculus, statistics. He said, that's different. And so he took his math and applied it to structural engineering in his way to make some money doing what he loved. He also loved sports, and he applied it to like water skiing, snow skiing, jet skiing, and driving fast boats, cars, and motorcycles. To verify what the pastor said about everything Mark had was, in fact, supercharged and had a modified exhaust. He bought a new Yukon, and when I get my cars fixed, it's because the brakes are bad or the engine blew or something like that. His brand new Yukon went in the shop to get modified exhaust and supercharged. So that's a little different. He loved horsepower, or like 10 hours more power. So, there's just two little stories I remember most about all the different things we did. But we were snow skiing at Mammoth, and Mark never went to like the triple diamond runs or the advanced runs. He always took me up to the off-limit runs. Avalanche or pure drop. So that was a little nice that he taught me that. And I loved this quickly, you know. So, anyway, after a day of skiing, we sat back and dropped into a jacuzzi. Okay, and we were sitting there for a while, and two of the girls in the jacuzzi. I don't know which two girls they were. Anyway, they said, "Are you twins?" And I said, "Here's an opportunity to make some money." So what I thought, I said, "Well, let's see who they think is the oldest." So I put $50 on the table. Okay? I'm thinking, I got this made. I got $50 for the night. I'm going to go party with the Mark. He doubles my bet to 100. Okay? See, I was the fruit and nut guy at the time. He was on deep and beer, so I got it made. So we sit in silence in the jacuzzi, bubbling along, and I'm sweating. That's $100. That's a lot to me. Okay. So, anyway, the girls come back and say, "Mark's young. I have 13 years younger than him." Right off the top, I got 100, and I can't get it back. So, for about 10 years after that, I heard that about every month. Never let it go. Never let it go. Talk about a bad hair day. There's one more to that story is now, when I go into the jacuzzi, I go in never ends. Another few things we used to do, we used to kid around a lot. He was sort of my, I guess after my father and mother separated at 70, he became my father figure. He was a real good father figure for me, okay? As an older brother, he never whacked me, so that was good, and I was bigger at the time. Okay? So it was impossible to do that. But anyway, he used to go to Lake Powell, and he absolutely loved water skiing at 4 a.m. in the morning. I mean, I'm getting up at night at Lake Powell, or anybody on vacation, I'm not getting up at 4 a.m. And what he would do, he'd go into the boat as one of those houseboats, He'd make this gooey Callaway coffee. This was supposed to serve it. He'd have 4 quadruple cappuccinos at 4 a.m. I'm thinking, Mark, this isn't going to be fun. The boats don't go that fast, okay? So we went out at 4 a.m. and it was just beautiful glass, and we stayed out there until I was exhausted. He never became exhausted after that. So he just loved skiing glass. I've never seen anybody love that like he does. It's just so beautiful out there, and he loved it. Just one more little event we had out there. One time on the lake, the wind kicked up, and we bought this catamaran, which is basically 2 pontoons and a trampoline in between. I've never seen them before in my life. Okay? This was called a fast cat. We use faster than slower catamarans. Right? So Randy, I'm going to teach you catamaran today. Oh boy, this is going to be fun. Older brother teaching me something fun. And so we went out and we started out, and the wind was breezing, maybe 20 miles an hour or something. And Mark was messing around the back, and we had a gush of wind coming from the desert. And Mark was playing, setting the rudders down and back, and fell off the cat. Okay, so we're on the cat with nobody. And I'm looking at Mark getting smaller and smaller in the distance. I'm sweating because this cat is moving. I mean, it's starting to go up on 1, on 2. What is going on? I'm going to fall and hit my head, So, and what he yells out is, he's just yelling and screaming, because he used to yell and scream a little bit when I got a little out of control. He said, come about, watch out for the boom. I'm thinking, what is he talking about? Yeah, Mark, I'm gonna do, yeah, okay, I love you, So, anyway, and I had no idea what come about meant. I didn't know what a boom was. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm going, and the wind sets the pontoon back, and that's time for the sails to come about. The boom came about, and I found out what a boom was. I got it like a no. Anyway, and so I found out what the boom was, then it threw me right off the boat. Okay? And we're about half a mile apart at this point, and I really am kind of sad because I think this cat cost 7 to 10 grand or something, and Mark didn't look too happy. And his boat just took off. And so I decided to swim back to Mark, and swim with a little hesitancy because, as I said, I never got one with my brother before, but this looked like a time. So it didn't happen that way, but anyway, so I get back to him, we swam back, and the catamaran just disappeared. I swam back, and I looked at him, and he says the strangest thing to me. He says, rock and roll. Pulled a beer out of his life. I'll take it. And this rock and roll thing, this guy talking about in the 60s, I don't know what he's talking about. Rock, rap, what he was. This rock and roll thing was kind of interesting. So we paddled back, like they paddled back, old movies, back to shore, thinking we're going to die. There's no sharks out there, but thinking we're going to be dead. So I took about 2 days to find the cat. It was on rocks, busted up, so I was doing fiberglass work for about a month. Thereafter, Mark mentioned, he took me in his Porsche, which is turbocharged and stuff, and he looked over at me and said, he's giving me a little ride. I said, Mark, I don't really like going that fast. He says, Randy, rock and roll. No. I think we're doing 100 pushing. I said, Mark, I'm out of here. So, but that's about it. He was a great guy, and I just loved him to death. I hope all of you loved him too. And we're going to miss him so much. And so, basically, Mark, I love you, and I miss you, and just love my life. So.